All right, Mr. D, let's control those common garden bugs that we see out there. Where do you want to start with that?
We're going to have a bunch. I think it's pretty clear that the hard winter that we had, the long winter that we had, didn't do a lot of insect control for us because they're out there. Even seen fire ants, up in more northern areas than we expected to see them after the cold weather that we had. But my advice on handling garden insects is scouting. Being out there, you've got to get out there, a lot and look and try to identify what you've got. It's very important that you know what pest you're trying to control. Some of them beneficial insects will come in and take care of for you. Others you can use the BT products for a lot of the caterpillars, and then some require insecticides to control. It's just important to know what you're dealing with. You can't have too much information when you're dealing with pests.
Right, because they're out there, there's no doubt.
They are out there.
Wow.
Some of the earlier insects you see, some of the first insects you see are aphids. They will show up on a lot of different vegetables out there. Flea beetles are another example of an insect that is not a caterpillar, and so the BTs don't work on flea beetles. So you'll have to use carbaryl or something that handles insects with chewing mouth parts. Aphids, on the other hand, have sucking mouth parts, and they also are not a caterpillar, so BT won't work on aphids. Fortunately, with aphids, sometimes beneficials will come in and help you on controlling them, but if not, then you need to go with, malathion or some of the pyrethrins will do a good job on controlling aphids and the flea beetles. Main thing is to read the label. First, identify the pest that you've got, and then read the label of the insecticide that you're going to use, and follow that label. Make sure that pest is on that label. If you have a choice of going with one of the softer products, like safer soap and things like that, go that route.
Yeah, you gotta get good control too. You
Right.
gotta spray underneath, because a lot of those insects are hiding underneath those
very
leaves.
important when you are applying a pesticide. Many times you might need to use a spreader sticker with the pesticide, such as a teaspoon of dishwashing liquid. Half a teaspoon of dishwashing liquid is probably enough per gallon of water. And then direct your spray to the underside of the leaves, and make sure you get really, really good coverage. It's extremely important.
Practice good sanitation. If you have a lot of that debris, like leaf litter and that kind of stuff on the ground.
That can aggravate, especially the diseases.
Yes.
That are spread by spores. So you don't want to have. It's really not a good idea to plant like tomatoes this spring. I mean, you probably already have your tomatoes planted, but if you got a choice, it's probably not a good idea to plant tomatoes on the exact same spot where you had tomatoes last year.
Right.
Rotate, move your things around. Rotation. Farmers rotate their crops, and homeowners need to rotate their vegetable crops also.
And guess what? Talking about tomatoes, there's the dreaded tomato hornworm. How do we control him?
I don't usually do anything to my tomatoes until I see that there's a problem. If you only look at your tomatoes once a week, the tomato hornworm can defoliate.
Yes,
your
they
plants.
can.
And the tomato hornworm, this big caterpillar, this 3-4 can get 4 inches long as an adult, starts out. Believe it or not, it's an itty bitty little hornworm, and that's when you can kill them. And so when you start to see some minor defoliation occurring, when one leaf is eaten, you may have a little hornworm that's growing really fast, and that's when I would use BT. Put the Bacillus thuringiensis out there, dipel or javelin, and the little critter will get a stomach ache and die, and you won't have any more problems, but you have to keep an eye on it. And in one application, you can't take care of that early in the season and say, okay, I've taken care of hornworms for the year, I'm not going to have any more trouble, because they have multiple generations and multiple moth flights.
Yeah.
And you may have 100% control this week, and tonight a moth flight and a beautiful sphinx
I've
moth
seen them. They look nice. They do.
will land on a tomato plant, lay an egg, and scoot on out of there, and you won't know that she's been there until she starts feeding on the tomato plant. So scouting. You get out there and walk around and look and make sure you know what's going on out there. And you'll also be able to catch the diseases like early blight and things like that on tomatoes. If you watch those lower leaves and start to see something happening there, then you can start your preventative fungicide application.
Now, what about the squash bug? Because we definitely get that question every summer.
Squash borer or squash bug?
Bug, yeah. We get that squash bug.
Yeah, squash bug, they have piercing sucking mouth parts, and they can spread the viruses and diseases that can really create problems. So scout for them and wipe them out quick, because if you drag around with the squash bug, and I also the squash vine borer also.
Yeah, that's another.
Pretty much have to go with preventative applications on that. It's one of the few insecticidal treatments that we recommend putting out on a preventative basis rather than just scouting. If you've had a history of problems with squash vine borers, you probably need to be out there applying, a labeled pesticide and directing it toward the base of the plants.
Right.
Yeah,
because it will collapse your plant.
And there's no treatment once it's in there. I mean, you're not going to have any luck.
Right, because it gets inside the vine, right? Just kind of burrows inside.
It gets inside the vine will wilt and die.
Yeah.
And if you cut that vine off with a set of pruning shears and split it and start following the hollow vine up to the source, you'll find the squash vine borer. You'll find the insect, because it can't run from you. It can't get away from you. But I never understood why plants would kill a plant that they're getting a living from. Most insects won't kill the plant. They'll just eat on it and eat on it and eat on it, let it live, and continues to provide food for them. Squash vine borer and the peach tree borer, which they're related to each other, they will kill their host plant. And that just doesn't make good sense to me.
Me either.
For that reason, we need to kill them if we can.
You get rid of them.
Practice a defensive maneuver there and try to get them before they get you.
That's right. All right, Mr. D, we appreciate that.